Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Hashtag Leadership, What's on Your Mind. Remember, we're a podcast to make you stop and think about your leadership journey by adding value, by speaking to amazing guests with amazing stories and experts in their field. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe on our YouTube channel or hit follow on your podcast provider. So this week we have the pleasure of speaking to Jim. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, excellent, Stuart. Had a great weekend and really looking forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, good. As ever, we say this all the time. I'm nervous about getting this into 20 minutes, so we'll do our best. So Jim has written an amazing book, which I have here, which I listen to on my audiobooks, but I'm privileged to have a copy right here, about the race across America. I've met Jim in person and just was somebody I had to invite on the podcast. So without further ado, as I hit the 20-minute timer, Jim, if you could introduce yourself for the people who don't know who you are.
Wow, a 20-minute introduction. I'm only joking. Yes, Jim Rees. How do you describe yourself? Who am I? I'm a human being with four kids, for age range from 32 down to 20. So 2 girls, 2 boys. I've been working in the corporate world as an executive coach for the last 22 years. Previous to that, I was in the pharmaceutical industry. I used to like the lines, I used to sell drugs before I give away the fact that I was in the pharmaceutical industry. But yeah, so I was selling drugs for AstraZeneca for 16 years. And prior to that, so the accent, because some people will be thinking, where's that accent from? I'm English born, grew up in Australia. So I suppose that's about me in a nutshell.
Amazing.
And my focus is as a coach, are all around emotional intelligence. So I'm passionate about what I do. And I'm one of the lucky ones. I think a bit like yourself, Stuart, I'm one of the lucky people that actually doesn't really consider that I do a job. I really love what I do for a living. So, and, you know, I've immersed myself in that arena. Hence, I suppose the reason I've stayed here for 22 years.
Yeah, amazing. And we're going to try and get those two things, like the book and emotional intelligence, in. So before we go there, though, the 2 questions we always ask every guest, obviously, we're hashtag leadership, what's on your mind? Like, what comes to your mind when you hear the word leadership?
Yeah, I suppose a classic for me, and I've only really just, because I didn't know the questions in advance. So and I deliberately didn't really want to know. I'd prefer you to just sort of hit me with them. So it's a great question. And the thing that springs to my mind is opportunity is now here for leaders. I think we've been talking about, for example, we've been talking about soft skills for so many years. And we've been trying to convince the powers to be that actually soft skills outdo the hard skills, i.e. the skill set of selling and the skills that it require to be certain, be able to do certain roles in an organization. And so it's only more recently, in the last 15 years or so, that the data has started to back up that actually it's not the person that's got high intelligence, it's the person that's got high intelligence and also a high emotional intelligence that wins the day. So really the soft skills, now the data is overwhelming, and neuroscience is also catching up, showing that actually these things also play out to our advantages as coaches in our world. So I think globally, leaders are starting to think about more importantly, how emotional intelligence can fit in their organization and the significant difference it can make. It is absolutely the game changer for any organization across the globe. So it's an exciting time for us, I think, in our world as coaches, to sort of grasp this and promote this as much as we can.
Yeah, definitely.
So
awesome.
for me, I hopefully that's answered the question, because I think it is an opportunity to really accelerate organizations embedding this into their plans moving forward. If they want to beat their competitors, they need to be more emotionally intelligent.
Yeah, definitely. And so to stay with you personally for the second question, and we always ask people how far are we going back for your personal start of your journey? So where did your leadership journey start, whether it be on reflection or there was a light bulb moment at the time? How far are we going back for your leadership journey?
I think it had, I've got to say that it probably started embarrassingly when I became a coach. And the reason for that is I was a line manager in the pharmaceutical industry. So I was a manager managing people and leading people. And I thought I was a great leader. And I thought I was a great coach up until the point I became a coach and started realizing what coaching was. It wasn't manipulating people. So it was finding out what their motivations were, etc. So my leadership journey started really when I started getting into the mindset aspects of what it takes to be an exceptional leader. And I think some of the data from Zenger and Folkman from the Extraordinary Leader stuff, they show that actually it's really important to have that component, that it's the mindset that outplays your motivational quotient. It's the mindset that outplays, i.e. your emotional intelligence, that outplays your intelligence. So, you know, you can have the technical skill and the motivation to do it, but actually if you haven't got the emotional intelligence, being able to interact with other people, then that's the bit that actually makes the difference.
Yeah. Amazing. I love that.
So yeah, I think my journey started way back 22 years ago, even though I was a leader previously, thinking that I was a great leader, because I actually had great results. And here's the thing, I had great results, but I don't think I was actually really that emotionally intelligent at the time. You know, that has evolved over time, of course, once I've become more aware of how important this has been and plays out when you are more emotionally intelligent.
Yeah, amazing. Right, so let's get on to this amazing book of yours. There's a great YouTube clip of it, or documentary about it, the race across America. I was, as a sport fanatic, and I like to know about everything to do with sports, I was surprised I'd never heard of it. So tell the audience what the race across America is. And I know this is quite challenging because you've got a full book that everybody should go and have a listen to or read, because it's an amazing story. But give us a little bit of a short version of what it is, how you got involved in it, and yeah, just give a flavour of what it involves.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the Race Across America is a bike race that starts in San Diego on the west side of America and finishes in Annapolis some 3,050 miles later. And the race, once the gun goes off, you've then got 12 days as a solo competitor to finish the race. So 12 days, 3,050 miles. Some people will be doing the math, but basically it averages out at between 250 to 400 miles per day without, you know, and you have to include your sleep as well within that. So, you know, the latest, you know, the guy that's won the race 6 times, Christoph Strauser, is quite an incredible athlete. He's done it in just under 8 days and set the world record for it. I've done it 3 times as a solo rider. You know, the first time I did it, I was literally just within the cutoff time. So 8 minutes within the cutoff time. So I literally just squeezed in just before they put the flag down and said, okay, that's the race done for this year. So the race has been going for 40 years. And it's considered to be one of the toughest races on the planet. So, you know, people will probably think about, when they think about a bike race, they think about the Tour de France. It's very different to the Tour de France. Tour de France is less than half the distance, and it's covered over a 3.5 week period. The professional cyclists get, you know, all the best treatment, the best hotels. Some would say the best drugs, but I'm not going to go there about that stuff. But they definitely get a good night's sleep, and they get massaged, you know, great food. They've got, you know, they've got their own chefs there to take care of them nutritionally. And so the race across America differs in that respect. So the last time I did it as a solo rider, I finished out of 42 competitors. I finished 6th overall. So 6th out of 42. And I did it in 10 days and 20 hours. So, and in that 10 days and 20 hours, I slept a total of 13.5 hours. So you know, most people that have had kids or have done some sleep deprivation stuff or some, you know, hardcore endurance races themselves, you know, an hour and a half it averaged out per day for that race that year when I was 6th overall. And of course, you know, with the sleep deprivation, which is a thing that they use to torture people, you end up with hallucinations. So, and I had some spectacular hallucinations, and they're in the book, but you know, just some of the really weird things. You know, you're cycling in the night, and out of a pothole, I've seen a black panther jump out at me. You know, I've had a cyclist. These are all hallucinations, and they look and feel absolutely real. And it's your brain trying to tell you to stop cycling because you're so tired. And another situation, I had a cyclist come up beside me, tell me that there was someone that was killed during the race. And I stopped and said, you know, you need to pay your respects. So I stopped at the side of the road and was just staring out into a void. And then one of the crew members came up and said, "What are you doing, Jim?" And I said, "Well, I'm just paying my respects to this person that died." And they said, "No, I think you're having another hallucination."
Wow.
And, you know, reminded me that I was in the race across America and I needed to get back on my bike. So these things are absolutely real. They're vivid. And there was no cyclist, obviously, that came up beside me. It was just all in my head. And it's amazing.
I've got an interesting question for you, because a lot of people are probably thinking now to ask, like, why would you do that? And that's one. I think that's probably quite a common question for you. I want to go another direction. What really quick, what have you learned about yourself going through that endeavor, through that experience? What have you learned?
In fact, you've read the book or listened to the book, so you know that I unpack in a very vulnerable way and share a lot of my blind spots. So I learned about some of my blind spots. Unfortunately, you know, pursuing such a extreme race. So I did it 3 times in a row as a solo competitor. And that had a massive impact on my business at the time. It was at the same time as the global meltdown in 2008. So, you know, that was the second race that I was doing as a solo competitor. And I was so focused on training for that and attempting to build a reputation around the race across America and the mindset that it requires to be able to compete at that level. And when you are so focused on one thing, of course, you're losing sight of other things. And it was a blind spot for me. So that had a massive impact on the relationship that I was in at the time. And I'm talking past tense because it was at the time. So I'm no longer in that relationship. And, you know, so it helped me realize, I suppose, what did I learn? I realized, and it's bizarre because, of course, I do this stuff for a living. But of course, we all have our own stuff to unpack. I realized just how important it is to have our values aligned, whether that's in a personal relationship or whether that's in an organization where you're working for an organization that has certain values and your values don't align, then you're always going to be bent out of shape. So you've got to make sure that your values are aligned to the organization's values. If they're not, you're going to be continuing to bend yourself out of shape. So that was a big learn for me around shared values, making sure that those values are aligned. It's critical.
Yeah. Awesome. I like that as well, because quite a lot of the time when you look at organizations, they like the way they're aligned, because you don't want to make robots. They don't have to be exactly the same. No. They don't have to be a shared. You have to have this. It's that alignment. And as we know, the use of language is so powerful. And even to step into those conversations of we're not all robots, but we're aligned together. I like that. Tell us about emotional intelligence then. We've got listeners who are wanting to level up their leadership journey, that are stopping and thinking and doing the good stuff of exposing themselves to different people, expertise, that lifelong learning, the toolbox I talk about in the military, about if you've got loads of stuff in your awareness, you've got a lot of things to put into the situation. So why is it really important now more than ever to have emotional intelligence as a leader moving forwards?
I guess one way to help listeners to think about emotional intelligence is basically, in essence, emotional intelligence is nothing new. It's been around for, you know, going back to Aristotle and all those guys. So it's a mindset. So it's just another label, but emotional intelligence is us thinking about how we feel. So, we might be, angry, upset, elated. We might have that. So checking, being aware of our feelings. So noticing our feelings, paying attention to them, giving them some significance, and asking the question, what's that about? Where's that come from? And then if it needs to be changed, changing our behavior to get a different outcome. So one of the neuroscientists, a guy called Andrew Huberman, has just recently, in the last year or so, did a sort of a video interview on YouTube and said that actually our evolution as human beings, our next evolution, our next big jump will be our ability to manage our emotions. And that's what emotional intelligence is about understanding yourself and understanding how you feel and how you act and how you behave. And then also being able to check in and check others' behavior. And it's a sensing, feeling, sort of, you're calibrating all the time. It's almost like using your spidey senses to make sure that you interact more effectively as a human being, as a leader. Mm-hmm. So the way I describe this in the book is I talk about, and you will have come across the fingerprint metaphor. And it's the model that I really like to go to when I'm explaining emotional intelligence with leaders. Emotional intelligence is all about the fingerprint that we leave in every interaction. So the interaction that we first had when we first met, did I leave you in a better state, a neutral state, or a worse state? And that's the question that we have to ask ourselves in every interaction that we have, whether that's with, and there are three groups, I group them. The most important group, I believe, is our intimate relationships, our partners, our kids, our family, friends, etc. So that's our intimate circle. Because unfortunately, we tend to take those folk for granted. And as I say that, I'm sure people listening will be saying, you know what, you're right. I have been taking my partner for granted just recently. I've been working all hours and I haven't really been focusing on the kids, etc. So that's a really important group. Then the next group is the people that we work with, our clients, our people that are in our business, our peers, our bosses, etc. So what fingerprint are we leaving in all of those interactions that we're having? And then the final group, which is the biggest group, is the rest of the world. The people that we go and pay our Starbucks to, so people that we probably won't see a great deal or very often. But what sort of fingerprint are we leaving? Are we leaving just that individual with a smile or a nice hello or welcome, paying attention to them instead of being distracted on our phones, etc. There's so many things that take us away from being fully present. So the fingerprint is about how present, how aware are you of how you're showing up? What impression have you left? And we all know it, it's a split second, that first impression that we get with a client, with someone new that we're meeting. So how are we being fully present in that moment? Or are we distracted with other stuff? Have we come from a different meeting just a minute ago where we didn't get the result that we wanted, and we're really flustered, and we're bringing that energy into the room for the next meeting, which then everyone can see, so we're sensing, feeling human beings, and we're full of emotions, and we pick up on that stuff. So I hope that sort of clarifies sort of what it is. I hope so.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I always say what you talked about then, I kind of sometimes mention about the fact of people say about knowledge is power, and I kind of don't. I think self and situational awareness and emotional intelligence starts to unlock the opportunity of you having control of yourself and others, and that's not in a manipulative way. It gives you choices. You're able to challenge, or all those different things that just start knitting together a high-performing person, team, organization. So yeah. Also, give us a little bit of about.
Just on that point, but by the way, sorry to interrupt, but just on that point, just given the fact that the Formula One has just happened yesterday, I think it's really interesting what you say there. The power thing. Pirelli had an advert. I don't know whether it's still their strapline, but their strapline is power is nothing without control. And that's a really interesting leadership
Amazing.
tag. Power is nothing. And I saw this when I was over in Italy about probably 15 years doing a coaching thing. And I saw it on a Pirelli, billboard. And I thought, wow, what a great strapline.
Yeah.
Power, nothing without control. So it's about controlling our emotional intelligence, controlling our fingerprint, being aware of the fingerprint that we're leaving in all of those interactions. So yeah, sorry to interrupt, Stuart. I just
No, do you know what? I was just about to finish off and say, what can people start to think about and look at to start along that journey? But what a great little analogy, and so true. I'm so pleased that you pulled that one out. That's awesome, because that is so true, because it fits into that kind of my understanding of that busy being busy, and everybody's just going along, and it's that stop and control, and it's that adding that extra bit, isn't it, of just control is exactly the word.
Yeah, it's calibrating. We're great at calibrating. So the scale of 1 to 10 that I talk about in the book as well, where are we showing up on that scale of 1 to 10, 10 being phenomenal and 1 being really miserable? What energy are we showing up? Because we're energetic beings, and we're literally scattering people, plastering people without energy. So what sort of energy are we transmitting out to the world?
Amazing. Awesome. Right, that's our 20 minutes. I can't believe it. So guys, if you want to hear about the book, if you want to get it or listen to it, or the documentary, anything of Jim's stuff is going to be in the comments below, and make sure you let us know. I love every week hearing what different perspectives or little bits you got from each of our guests. It's a real driver for me to hear what you got of each one of them. So let me know, share it across social medias, and every Wednesday at 6 a.m. another amazing guest will be coming your way. So make sure you follow us on your podcast provider, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So Jim, thank you so much for your time today.
That's been a pleasure. And I hope you have yourself and your family and everyone else listening. I hope this will be post Christmas, but I hope you've all had a phenomenal Christmas and are already leaning into an exciting 2022.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. And guys, I'll see you all next week. Take care. Bye.